Sponsor an orphan, and you'll help support a vulnerable child to have the education they've always dreamed of, so they can build a brighter future. You'll be feeding a hungry stomach and a hungry mind with knowledge that will last them a lifetime. That's the power of an education. Sponsor an orphan now with Islamic Relief.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. This is your brother, Preacher Moss, the host of the SOS, the Shout Out Show. We open the show with sad news. First of all, we want to send well wishes to the Pope. Evidently, he's having some health issues. We hope that clears up. May Allah give you shifa, our dear elderly brother. But we also open the show today with the loss of Pelé, Mr. Nascimento, Mr. Football. And we're going to talk about that a little bit today. And the title of the show is Why the World Mourns Pelé. And I want you to know I mourn Pelé for a variety of reasons, very, very good reasons, very, very personal reasons. But I have to say that it is an amazing passing for somebody to be that iconic. And when the news came that he passed, I wasn't surprised. He was 82 years old. He had been dealing with colon cancer. And then that's not to say that I still didn't think he would pull through for no other reason than he was Pelé. But we lost somebody who was an humanitarian ambassador to a sport that lifted up millions and millions of people around the world. As the World Cup is just concluded, if you will, and we have a winner, and our winner is Argentina. You have to understand that this is the evolution of a sport. And he was a person that was directly in the center of it, making it big, accessible, and more importantly, making it purposeful. So here on the Shout Out Show today, we're going to talk about that. We want to make sure we also reach out to people who are sick and infirm. We're still du'as up for Sister Mary Adams, the mother of John Adams, comedian, and of course, Sister Carol Slocum, who's the mother of Doug Robinson. We have some other folks. We'll make sure we keep them in dua as things move forward. But I want you guys to think about all the international sports that you see. Basketball, baseball, think of all the international sports. Then go back 10 years and realize that 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, basketball was not an international sport. Football, the NFL was never an international sport. Baseball, like I said, was not an international sport. These are things I want you to understand, because as we talk about Mr. Pelé, Brother Pelé, may Allah be pleased with him, you have to understand that there are very, very few people that can transcend sports. Like we talk about Jordan all the time, but Michael Jordan had the benefit of a Nike. He had the benefit of narrative, that he could titillate the mind, the American mind, by virtue of the fact that he could do feats of magic on a basketball court. But the basketball court is interesting because, it's not as many players. It's not as many players. And he stood heads above. He still stands head above most people, because why? He had the skill level. But Mr. Pelé, and I will call him Mr. Pelé, did something that was way different that Jordan has never achieved. In fact, very, very few people in the history of international sports have achieved what he achieved. And what he achieved, and I'm going to talk about it, was achieving critical mass where people took sports and the condition of mankind, put it together and said, this is what the world is. So the soccer ball left the stadium, it left the field, and it went around to some of the poorest areas in the country, the poorest areas in the world. And he exposed these things. And he said, Can I use this sport to uplift people? No knock against Jordan or a whole lot of people, but outside of Muhammad Ali, very few early on athletes, and I'm talking the era pre-social media, pre-TV even, had the ability to use sports to uplift people. So we're going to talk about that here on the Shout Out Show. I thank you guys for tuning in. I think we got a good one today. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we're back. I want to make sure that I want to get everybody taken care of in a Shout Out Show family, our soldiers. I want to make sure we welcome everybody. It was a big weekend for the Shout Out Show in Chicago at MassCon, better known as Mass Ignorant Convention, but now they call it MassCon. I know it's a big thing because on the way to O'Hare Airport, they actually had a big sign that said, "Welcome MassCon." I was like, ooh, some Muslims have arrived. You advertising for Muslims at the airport. We doing something right. I couldn't let it go. Sultana. All right, so let's get everybody in here. I think we got our full complement. Shout out to Mary Moss, better known as Mama San. She's saying, greetings, SOS family. Stay blessed. Assalamu alaikum off the tube. Barakat to you, Mama San. Thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate you. Also, Sister Ree is back in the state of Texas. Ree, good to hear you. You're back. You're back safely. You beat a big storm. You and Derek and Juan, however many people are driving the car, you beat a big storm. So I'm glad you're back safely. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to you and the family. My main man, Altaf Rashid, Mr. 6 o'clock, straight up, straight down. How you doing, beloved? Good to see you on the show. I know you are happy that the temperatures in Toronto reached 2. It's almost like a veritable heat wave, man. But thank you so much for being on the show. Again, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My main man, Eric Carter. Brother Eric, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, beloved. Good to see you on the show. How'd you fare through the weather, man? You okay? I know we got cold all over the place. People say, I'm going down south. I'm like, it's cold down the south. So, man, good to see you in the place, brother, as always. And Johnny L. Thomas, better known as JT. What's going on, beloved? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Excuse me. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brother. I hope everything went well for you. Please, I made dua for Aunt Mamie. Of course, for her recovery. May Allah give her shifa and a safe trip back to Seattle. So I hope everything went well, man. We'll catch up. And my main man, big brother Bilal Salahuddin, put it on blast. He said, salam, just me and my granddaughter. And they send their salams. Well, wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to the little princess, brother. I thank you. Thank you so much for putting her in front of the Shout Out Show. There's a picture that Brother Bilal sent, but I don't put it. I need your permission to put that picture up. But it was such a funny picture, brothers and sisters. If I put it up on screen, you guys are going to crack up. I know every time I see it, I do crack up. And how can we forget Isaac producer, Sister Sultana Whitfield, wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, saying, welcome to the SOS family. Y'all do know this, Sultana, am I correct? This is the last SOS Shout Out show of the year. Is that correct? I was premature yesterday, so today I'm right. But Sultana's like, yeah, broke clock is correct twice a day too. But I appreciate it. I understand I make mistakes. So let's enjoy this show. People say, where do you start? With Pelé. And okay, also prayers for Dr. Nasamet down in Florida. Not sure he had a mild stroke. We just hope he's well. He's a good guy. I always give him a hard time because he does a lot of long cook busts. There's a cook by limit, and he's broken it every time. God bless him. But he's convicted. He has conviction, so that's all you can say. And he's passionate, so it's like, you just gotta roll with it. And he's defiant. He's like, you gotta go, get out. I do like that about the man. But this topic of Pele, I don't know how many people are really gonna understand how profound this man's presence was. It's beyond soccer. I mean, he had 3 World Cups. But you have to understand, his first World Cup, he was 17 years old. Now imagine what you were doing at 17 years old. At 17 years old, he's on the biggest stage in the world. In America, at the time it happened, and black folk in that period of time when he was playing the world, we didn't know about international sports outside of the Olympics. Like, international sports happened in the Olympics. And after that, we had NBA, we had Major League Baseball, we had the NFL. So this man breaks a mold. If you work with me here, for him to do what he did, there was no college farm system for him to go to. At 15, 16, he's playing with grown men. He's playing on the best team in his area, and it evolves that he goes to almost like a soccer factory. And in this soccer factory, he becomes Pele, scoring goals, flash, all of that. We're talking skills that have not been seen in the world of soccer, period. And then he does the unimaginable. He takes the soccer ball, and he doesn't hold it to the chest and say, me, me, me. He says us. He says possibilities. He said, where are the opportunities? And he takes the opportunity while the world is looking at Brazil as a World Cup champion. You just saw the magnitude of the World Cup recently in Qatar. But he takes it and he turns to a flashlight. And he starts flashing around places in Brazil where he came from. And these places in Brazil weren't pretty. They weren't pretty. The favelas, they weren't pretty. These ghettos, they weren't pretty. They were violent. There were all these things. There's poor education, poor healthcare, no healthcare, crime. They had all these things. And he says, we put all this attention on this sport, but what about the people? Because the connection was for the people he was talking about that were in these situations. They were the most ardent and fervent soccer fans you could ever think of. And they lived through him. Now, here's something I want you to think about. When you start talking about the 70s and the 60s, I know it gets a little hazy for some of us. But I remember this, that Pele's influence on soccer as an ambassador was so intense that by the time I was in the 2nd grade, I was playing soccer. And not considered a nerd. Because, and I say this, because you never heard black folk. We used to joke about playing soccer. We didn't want to hit the ball because we want to mess up our hair. I used to say that in the team. I'm not messing up my haircut, my fresh do, trying to play soccer, But the thing that was really, really interesting is at a young age, he transforms the game. As much as I love Muhammad Ali, I love Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali was never tasked to bring the sport of boxing to the world. Mr. Pele was tasked, and he took it on. And it was such a fervent thing in the 70s. I remember my mother taking me to see the New York Cosmos and at RFK Stadium. And everybody was losing their mind over Pele. Like people, you didn't know how many soccer fans, how many football fans there were in the DC area until you walked into that stadium and they were there to see him. And the thing that was amazing was he was the highest paid athlete. I think he was getting $1.6 million, $1.67 million a year, and everybody was like, "Oh my gosh," because it was better. It was bigger than football numbers. But he raised the sport. And the thing that I really, really appreciate is that Mr. Pele bought me out of some of my preconceived notions about other cultures. When I played football, there was a family that coached me. They were the Henry family. Coach Henry, he had two sons, Jeff and Jerry. Jerry's like the assistant coach, and Jeff was a player. Jeff, he kind of dumped on his son a lot. He was really hard on him. But I remember Mr. Henry gave me my first nickname, one of many. He gave me the nickname of Mighty Mouse. I played the back line as a defender. I chased you down. I was aggressive. I was ferocious. I was in my best imitation trying to be Pele. And I remember the feeling of looking at this man who was a white man. Here you go. This man who was a white man encouraging me to the point that we actually had an insurrection on the team, and the parents broke off and started another team, to the point where this game was so fulfilling and unifying. My next coach after Coach Henry was my dad. A man who knew nothing about soccer. He knew nothing about soccer, but he was willing to step into the void and coach. Not just me, but other young men, little young men. And it was interesting because I saw my dad willing to learn. And I saw the galvanization of the families as we traveled through. We would call the Seabrook Silvers. And my mom and a couple other people went out and got sponsorships. And we had the soccer jersey. The soccer jersey was cold. It was like black and gray and had a little surf thing there. It was cold. Your boy looked good. But I remember how important it was. The feeling of playing soccer, and at a very young age, the feeling of playing for something and having purpose. Because we went out and we left our little Seabrook area. We went all around Baltimore, and I'm gonna be honest, some of those teams were bigger, faster, stronger, and we didn't win the amount of games that we wanted to win. Let's just be honest. But I learned consistency. And in a way, you got a small taste of what it was that he had to go through when he went through the ranks. Of course, he was Pele, Mr. Pele. I was not. I was Mighty Mouse. But in the same regard, it gave you a particular drive. And you have to understand at a young age, when you got a drive and it's tied to something about being purposeful. In a way, I didn't want to let down Mr. Pele. Flash forward a couple years. You've all heard me talk about Miss Jones, Miss Alveda Jones, who I thought was the meanest black woman that God had put on earth in the 6th grade. In the 6th grade, me and you seen Bitcoin Rick, that's my big brother. We used to play soccer at lunchtime. And somehow, some way, the teachers thought that we should have a soccer tournament between the 6th graders, Mr. Jones' class, and Mr. Jarman's class. Ms. Jones and Mr. Jarman. Coincidentally, 2 black teachers. But I'll never forget this. But Ms. Jones began talking about teamwork and working together. And our case study was we were going to have a soccer team. And she said she expected excellence out of our soccer team. She said, everything that I have taught you about organization and unity and preparation, she said, you have a case study. And I'm like, whatever. You have. Listen, you talking to girls. Hey, girl, what's going on? And I'm talking while she's talking, which is wrong. And she said, I have decided that the manager of the soccer team, the coach of the soccer team, would be Mr. Moss. I'm still talking over here. Everybody looking at me. I'm like, what you looking at? I'm like, what you think? They said, you the coach. And I remember at the end of the school day, when everybody left, I went to Miss Jones to make sure that she was okay, that, she didn't have, that she wasn't sick. that she wasn't having some kind of attack that impaired her judgment. And she said, "What's wrong?" I said, "Well, Miss Jones, this is a very important thing. This competition, this is win lose. This is bragging rights on the playground. And you want me to be the coach of the team." And she said, "That's right." And I was shocked. I'm going to tell you how this story turns out when we come back here on the ShOUT Show. Hey, babies. Welcome to Radio WCUC, Convenient Urgent Care, home of the smart patient. This is DJ What It Do. You know what time it is. It's the top of the hour, and the request lines are open. You know what you want to hear. I know what you want to hear. Operators are waiting.
I just got to hear, don't get the COVID.
Don't get the COVID. Put your mask back on. The Delta COVID, more contagious than before. Don't get the COVID. Go on and get the vaccine. You know that it can keep you safe, and your people living up in your space. Don't get the COVID. You need to wash your hands. The Delta COVID is more deadly than before. Don't get the COVID. Go on and get your vaccine. You know that it can keep you from dying. Don't leave your family all alone and crying. Don't get the COVID.
We invite you to join our fight against COVID and against misinformation. It's time to listen to the doctors and trust the science.
When I think of people dying that don't have to die, it makes me sad. Now's the time to be sober. Together we can make this thing over. Let's fight the COVID. Convenient urgent care, home of the smart patient.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. I'm Preacher Moss, host of the SOS ShOUT. So listen, I am coming on because I am advertising. I'm giving an endorsement for black seed gummies in original organic elderberry. Now, they say that this cures everything but death and people that owe you money. Now, listen, I'm going to tell you something for my brothers and sisters. Go out and get some. I know some of you don't know what elderberry is, and that's probably why you're dying with stroke and you're only 16 years old. Listen, just trust me. Pick it up. This Preacher Moss talking about, again, black seed oil gummies. Talk to you soon. Remember, pick it up. And if you don't know what elderberry is, you just don't know. This is the perfect thing you need for when you have a long 3-day conference in Chicago. Okay, sometimes I crack myself up. All right, this let me pick it up. So Miss Jones chose me to be the manager, the coach of the 6th grade football team, and we were playing the other 6th grade class. I'm going to tell you something about Miss Jones. I had some funky situations with Miss Jones, and all of them were my fault. That's number one. Every time she yelled at me, she was correct. That's number two. Every time she believed in me more than I believed in myself. That's number three. And what happened with this football game is she didn't give me any directions. There are no instructions. She said, "You play this game." And I said, "Yes, ma'am." And in that space, she gave me an opportunity to frame my whole idea of management of players and talent and skill. And I even went to the point we had tryouts for the team and da-da-da. And it was so much more than even I could have expected. And I asked Miss Jones later on, about 3 or 4 years later after I left the 6th grade, I think I was in 9th grade, I asked her about this thing. And she said, the point of it is that you had to expand your knowledge of life to be able to understand a lot better. She said, I saw you play basketball. She said, because that's all young black men did was play basketball. That's all we were taught. Or football. That's all we were taught. Some of us played soccer. She said, but it was interesting to see how I reacted to a sport that was an international sport and introduce it to some of my hardcore friends who had never played soccer before. And she introduced me to the idea that you evaluate talent. You don't exploit it. You evaluate talent and you see where it's applicable. So it wasn't a factor of me putting together a team that will win. It was putting together a team that would be a team. Let me explain. While we won the soccer game, the thing that Miss Jones liked the most is that I didn't just use the kids that were the great athletes. I saw people who were my age who they weren't skillful, they weren't that particularly athletic, and we used them in different ways. So the kid who really couldn't run because he had a little limp, I made him the statistician. We don't even know what a statistician was. And the girl who, she had a little bit of a stutter. I said, well, you'll do the little water and the little Gatorade. We didn't really have water and Gatorade by this punch, but But it was interesting because Mrs. Jones had shown me this pathway about service. Yeah, we wanted to win. Oh, we wanted to win. And we won, but it was the way we won. And what I remember that is she said, never feel that you're too small for the moment, that the moment's too big. And she said the way you do that is that you compartmentalize, you look at things and you realize that there's a team within the team, there's a team within that team and a team within that team. He said, and all around the park, there's potential. And that was the first time I really, really got a step up in terms of potential. See, when you play sports and people tell you that you're good or you're great, that sparks potential. But when you have to look at it in connection with everyone else, the other people that will help you be great, the other people that help you be successful or efficient or whatever, he said, therein lies the challenge and therein lies the blessing. I remember a guy named Charles Carroll and Mark Howard. Mark Howard was an absolute fool on a good day and a bad day. He put gray hairs in Miss Jones' hair. I ain't never seen gray hairs in her eyebrows. He was a challenging kid. This is before they really had special ed. But I gave Mark a job. I gave him position on the field. And probably one of the most important positions. I gave him the goalie position. And the reason I gave Mark the goalie position, because I figured if somebody kicked the ball, he wouldn't be afraid if it hit him in the face. This is me thinking in sixth grade, so forgive me. But at a crucial point, the ball rolled down. We were up 1-1. The ball got kicked. Mark charged out like he was a all-pro goalie. The ball hit him in the face, went out of bounds. The school bell rang, and we won the game. And I remember laughing at Mark because he got hit in the face. We all laughed because he got hit in the face, but on the real side, he did his job. But I remember talking to Miss Jones, and Miss Jones talked about when she first heard about Pelé and how it made her feel. And then she said the only thing about when she heard about Pelé was that girls could not play soccer. So, hey, Miss Pelé, I thank you. I salute you. Miss Jones, thank you for letting me be the coach. And Mark Howard, thank you for letting the ball hit you in the face. I'm Preacher Moss. This is a shout-out show. We'll see you in February. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.